welcome to Groverly's Storytime with me, Mr. O'Brien. Today, our story is going to use drawing to tell the story and make the pictures. I'll be using this pen, and you can see here I've already drawn some of the parts that you'll need to know about for this story. This story is all about a little witch. In fact, she's the same witch from last time's story. This story happened before the big problem of being kicked out and needing to find a new home. This is her old house. Let me show it to you. These are the places that you'll need to know about in the story. There's the little witch's house, which has 2 pointy roofs, curtains in the windows, a little chimney, and a little door. There's the farm gate, the duck pond, and the apple tree. There once was a little witch. When I say she was little, she was only this big. And she lived with her little cat. When I say he was little, he was only this big. And together they lived in this house with its 2 pointy roofs, its curtains in its window, and its chimney for the fireplace. They had a fireplace because they lived in a very cold country. And whenever the weather was cold, the witch would go outside and pick up the firewood that she kept by her front door. She would lay a fire and make a warm cup of tea for herself and a warm dish of milk for her cat. And they would cuddle up in a nice, cozy house. One such a day, she woke up and it was very cold indeed. So she opened the door, she bent down to pick up some sticks when, whoosh, running between her legs came the little cat. The little witch fell backwards onto her bottom and she let go of the sticks and they flew in all different directions. One flew this way, one flew that way, one flew that way, one flew that way, one flew this way, and one flew that way. By the time she'd stood up and dusted herself off, the cat was nowhere to be seen. He was gone. And she was very worried. She thought, I've got to find my cat. It's too cold. He needs to sit by the fire. I bet he's gone down to the farm gate. So she walked down the path from the door to the farm gate. She looked this way, she looked that way. Oh no, there was no sign of the cat. She thought, oh, he loves to sit by the duck pond. I bet that's where he's gone. So she turned around and she started to walk towards the duck pond when all of a sudden, whoops, she slipped over on some icy ground. She fell onto her bottom for a second time that day. It was starting to be a very fally over day. She picked herself up, she dusted herself off, and she turned around and walked to the duck pond. She looked this way, she looked that way. Oh no, no sign of the cat. She walked around the duck pond and that's when it happened again. Whoops! She slipped over again. This time she got a stick in her hair and a leaf on her nose and mud on her skirt. She picked herself up, she pulled out the stick, she pulled off the leaf, she dusted off the mud and thought, where could my cat be? It's getting later and later and colder. Aha! He loves to climb the apple tree. I bet that's where he is. So she turned around and she started to walk towards the apple tree when, whoops! She slipped over again. This time she tore a ladder in her stocking. It was not a good day at all. But she had to find her cat before the sun went down. So she picked herself up, she dusted herself off, and she started to walk the twisty-turny path to the tree where the cat liked to climb. She looked this way, she looked that way, she looked up the tree, but no sign of the cat. By now the sun was setting. It was going to get really cold and she had to head back home. So sadly she turned around and she followed the twisty-turny path back down around the duck pond and back up to the door of her house. And that's where she found her cat, sitting by her front door, waiting for her, with his ears, his whiskers, his patch of fur, and his twisty-turny tail. She scooped him up and gave him a big warm hug. She picked up some firewood. They went inside and they sat by the fire, She lit the fire and made warm tea and warm milk, and they had a nice warm cuddle. And that is the story of the cat who disappeared and reappeared before your eyes. I hope you really enjoyed today's story, as much as I enjoyed telling it to you. I hope to see you at Grovely sometime, and I hope you enjoy story time with me, Mr. O'Brien.